Creative Keyboard's goal is to help people communicate better, right? Most of our social life today is on social text apps on our phone. And the thing is, not everybody is as good as in communicating via text as everybody else, right? Some people are very good person to person communicating, like face to face. But when they're giving text, given texting on a chat app, it's not easy for them and they can't express themselves. So that's the problem we're trying to solve.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. 20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with CTech. Hello and welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Today we're going to be talking to Noy Shulman, all about consulting with artificial intelligence, the integration of artificial intelligence into enterprise, and how we can leverage AI and NLP solutions for different mechanisms. Today, he's running a new company, which we'll talk about as well. Meet Noy, a data scientist and AI algorithm researcher, adept in developing tailored AI solutions for companies. Noy specializes in helping companies integrate deep learning algorithms into existing products. Talking from one of the best areas in the world, Rothschild. Thank you very much for being here. Noy, you've been working on some really, really fun things, I have to say. Working a lot with companies on integrating artificial intelligence into their cycles, into their technology stack. Something that I'm deeply curious about, because it's something that is so relevant in our life today, as we have so much research taking place into these new models that are coming out. Some of them are more generalized, some of them are more fine-tuned, and I'm curious to hear your perspective on the integration of these technologies, either from research-led in-house or taken as a black box, and then also transitioning to talking about the new company that you're working on that is very NLP-centered. So thank you again for being here. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your own background, sort of what is your background with technology and how did you get into the artificial intelligence space?
I'm an electrical engineer. I studied at the Technion. So I finished school about 5 years ago, university. And I just fell in love with AI during school. I just took this course on computer vision because somebody told me it was cool. And I just fell in love with it immediately. And I said, this is what I want to do. And then I quit the other job that I had in chip design. And I said, I'm going to find a job where I get to do deep learning. And it wasn't that easy because back then, every company I called was like, we're accepting only PhDs and we're doing that. And I just didn't let go until I found this company who gave me a chance. And this was a very small company. And what we were doing is giving services to different enterprises and also different startups. They want to develop their machine learning or deep learning capabilities, but don't know how to do that. So that's what I did for about 2 years. And then I moved out of that and just started doing the same thing on my own. So me and my brother started a business. He's more of a hardware guy. I would do algorithms. And so we also did a lot of projects that are really end to end, where you have hardware, take actually the signals and also do the algorithms that we were giving a whole solution. And now for the past about 6 months, I've been doing something called Creative Keyboard that we're going to talk about later.
Amazing. And so tell me a little bit about your work with, a little bit about your work, with your brother, working with companies. I'd love to understand a little bit better sort of the process of what you've learned about the integration of these AI systems within organizations. What types of I guess relationships do you have when you're coming in outside and helping them do this? Either do you develop it? Do you mainly consult with them on what technologies to use? How does it actually work?
So it really changes. Sometimes we were hired to do consulting, and sometimes we did the whole integration and implementation and everything. And more into that, the world has kind of changed. I think introduction of GPT-3 style models, like very large language models, kind of changed the world, but not that much because they're not practical in every use case. So even though I haven't been doing this for a long time, like people say, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm only about 5 years in this business. That things changed. When we
5 years ago, we didn't even have
NLP solutions.
5 years ago, we didn't even have transformers. Right. So you're before even the main big the big hype that we've had recently.
Yeah, so we think about the introduction of GPT-3 as a very transformative technology, but before that came BERT, and BERT was really exciting because it was the first time that people made a general language model that we can fine tune. Train on a lot of data and fine tune on a different task. I guess it's probably not the first time, but it was a model that was very widely adopted. But still, when we were using BERT, we needed a lot of data from the company or the enterprise that is specific to their task, which is kind of different today with very large language models. So what we would do is come to some organization, talk to them about the task, and understand if they can actually have the data. Because usually, not usually, I think 99% of the time in this world, and it was true since even before BERT, that the models are open source. You don't really invent any algorithms today. Like some people do, but most people the world is going towards data driven. So it's a lot more important to have the right data and understand what does that mean, because that's not an easy task as well. So
Noy, can you go back and
the organization has
and tell me what you're mentioning the importance of data and fine tuning, but let's talk to me a little bit more about why the generalized approach of GPT-3, Jurassic, Megazord, Palm, Lambda, all these large language models that these huge companies are building. Why are they not a one size fits all solution to these NLP types of questions that companies have? Why is that not enough?
Okay, that's a good question. And it might be enough. Okay, for some tasks, these models are definitely enough. And there are two types of tasks. I would divide the answer that these models are not a good match. Okay. The first one is a lot easier to understand. It's about money. These models are expensive to run. So if you run your model a lot of times and you need a lot of answers and you get little value out of every answer, it might not be a good fit for you because it's just not expensive. So it's very expensive. So it's just not scalable. You want something cheaper. So you want a smaller model than GPT-3, who's using it is very expensive because it's a lot of processing power. Okay. So this is one reason why not use these huge models. And the other reason is just they don't really always supply the right answers. So maybe you can use GPT-3 and also fine tune it on some of your own data to make it understand better your use case. But in the end, when you're using these very huge models, you need to give them some sort of prompt. So if this is a very easy task, you can just use the prompt to tell the model what you want. But if it's any task that's a little more complicated, many times you'll be a lot better fine-tuning the model. So if you fine-tune this huge Megazord, that's good and it will get you the best results. But you usually can use not a lot of examples, even tens or hundreds of examples to fine-tune a smaller model, maybe 10 times smaller than GPT-3, and get better results than a non-fine-tuned GPT-3.
That makes sense. In regards to the data for fine-tuning, what does that look like? What is fine-tuning? What does that require from a company who come in and says, we want to be special, we want to specialize in a specific context? And they're thinking, okay, how do I make sense of fine-tuning, generalized approaches? What do they do at that point? Literally, tangibly.
Okay, so it's definitely very different between different companies. So let's try and think of an example. So let's say there is a company, and I'm sure there is a company that does takes the doctor's notes from patient meetings. And this doctor, he writes the things in his free language. Okay, it's free language. The patient is feeling that and that. I saw this and this, and they want to take an NLP model to make this into some kind of brackets for insurance claims. Okay, so another software can process it later. So data for that can look like the actual doctor's notes, and then the tabular data that we want to get out of it. So where's the problem? Sometimes a company can't supply that data because maybe it's confidential. Maybe they just didn't store it. Okay, so that's how data looks like, and it presents many challenges to different to the companies. Because let's say a company, they think they're smart. Okay, first question I used to ask a company when I'm meeting them was, tell me about your data. Okay, and these companies, oh, no problem, we thought about that. Okay, and then we have to dive deeper. So if we go into that same question, let's say they thought about that and they have this one clinic where the patients, they sign some wavelet and you can store all the data from that clinic. Okay, but that clinic might be in some sort of neighborhood where they only have, let's say, old people. And it doesn't really reflect in a different neighborhood where maybe they have a lot of immigrants or maybe they have a lot of young children. So sometimes the company collects data, but the data isn't diverse and it doesn't really reflect the real world problem that they want to say solve later. So that's also very crucial. Make sure the data fit your task.
Mm-hmm. And at that point,
usually the data is the challenge. It's not easy. Mm-hmm.
Let's say we have the data, right? So let's say I have, structured, unstructured data, whatever, according to the problem that I want to solve. I'm a clinic with a specific use case that I have. Now, at this point, do I need to have some in-house researchers that are doing this? Do I leverage generally outsource platforms? How do I then actually take this data and fine-tune it to a model that fits my use case? What type of resources do I then need as an organization? Do I need to deploy in order to actually make this into a working NLP model for me?
Yeah, so you will need somebody that knows how to do this, preferably in-house and not outsource, because these things are very dynamic, and you want somebody that will go with the model and know how to improve it. But the resources that you need to do this are a lot smaller than it used to be, because you used to really need a team of data scientists and algorithm researchers and do everything. And now, since open source platforms open, such as Hugging Face, where you have all the models and you can even train online, you can do almost everything as a one-man show, taking the data, cleaning it, training a model, and doing everything, and then integrating it. Just like one talented person can do this. And it's not very difficult today. Like the actual technical part of it, taking the data, putting it in some sort of format, uploading it to, let's say, Hugging Face. It's just a very popular open source platform, and training the model. I think where the expertise come in is analyzing the results. You can train the model, but making sure it's good, making sure you don't have biases, which can be crucial in some companies. And then building some sort of feedback loop where you can understand where your model is not doing good enough and improve it. I think these are the crucial jobs of algorithm developers today. Not actually writing the algorithm as it used to be, but building some sort of feedback loop to analyze the model, get more data, and improve it. So that, I think, is the most important thing an organization needs to know, and also an algorithm developer. Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. If we're looking a little bit ahead, and you're mentioning that there's shifts, right? Mm-hmm. Before we needed some significant resources in-house and researchers and data scientists. We needed a team. Now we need a person. We had to create everything from scratch. Now we have these open source models that we can leverage and work off of. And you're mentioning another trend that a big part of the job is turning from a focus of building the model and training it to a process of evaluating it and improving on it, fine tuning on it, with iterations. Where are we headed? So, we're moving very, very fast. We're looking at what AI21 Labs is doing in its effort to commoditize these large language models and a lot of developer friendly platforms like Hugging Face that are pushing the boundaries. If we're looking towards 3 years down the line, what are we imagining, or what will you speculate will be the process that an organization that is not AI focused from the get-go, what will they need to do in order to create a tailored NLP solution for their own use case, assuming that the GPT-4 of the world will not be a black box ready for them to use?
So just like I said before, it's all about data. Okay. First of all, I don't believe, and I'll return to the data in a second. I don't believe that algorithm developers are not going to be needed. It's just like we had in software where people used to write in C and this very hard languages. And today we have very easy to use libraries and languages such as Python that just do abstraction for all the things that people had to write by themselves. I feel it's the same thing. Okay. You had to do the bits and bytes. You used to do that in algorithms, and now you're doing one level above that. But you still have to decide which algorithm you're using, which model fits the task better, best, and all sorts of things. Now, to answer your question and return to the data, it's all about the data. So companies, even though they're not AI focused from the get-go, they always need to be data driven. Like, you need to save as much data as you can. There are some limitations, obviously, regulations and all that sort of stuff. But if you have a lot of data, preferably if you can tag it in some way and organize it, then you will be able to implement AI solutions fairly easily to your organization. And what I started saying before is about feedback loops. Once you have that professional algorithm developer in your organization, one of his main tasks will be to develop a feedback loop where you implement the actual AI in the product, get feedback, understand when it's working and not working, and then get more data to improve it. And that's not an easy task. It's not an easy task to know when the model is not doing that well, especially if it's in scale, because you need people to actually look or evaluate it in some way. It's not easy. And then getting more data to train the model again, also not easy. Where do you come up with new data? Let's say this organization has been collecting some sort of user data for 3 years. So now you understand you have this whole subset of the data that doesn't exist that you want to create. It's not easy to create something that actually is meaningful and will improve the model.
Interesting.
So I think it's a very holistic approach. You need to think of the customer, the data, the algorithm. They're all working together towards making better models.
Now, sort of to wrap up the conversation on the companies leveraging NLP for their own use cases before we transition to your new company. If we're looking at our sort of a timeline strategic, today, most organizations still do not employ NLP as a real resource of the organization. Some of them are using some tools, but it's not yet appearing in our daily lives. And I think we can both agree that NLP is going to transform fundamentally a lot of the way that organizations leverage communication, text, internally, externally. When do you expect we will have some significant increase in usage in organizations that are, the long tail of small businesses that are able to harness NLP? How far away are we? Is this, months? Is this years? What do you think needs to happen for us to actually get there?
It's a great question. I think there are different types of organizations, right? So the innovators will innovate. organizations and companies that are used to adopting new technologies will adopt them. Just like, let's say 30 years ago, you had restaurants, all the restaurants were taking the bills and orders by hand. And now everybody has tablets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are still restaurants that are still doing the same thing and writing these notes by hand.
Sure.
So these companies that are not willing to innovate will not innovate. We have to remember that, right? And then which companies will adopt the NLP? I believe many companies, it will happen, I think, not in the next months, but let's say 2, 3, 5 years, we will see a lot more solutions. But it's also, we need to remember that this is a means to an end, right? The company doesn't have to have an NLP. It has to solve some sort of problem for this company. And we can think of different problems that this technology solves, but that's not the goal, right? Adopting NLP to companies. I believe a lot of small businesses, a lot of startups will build products for small, medium-sized businesses that will make adopting this technology very easy.
Got it. Okay. So we will see a variety of solutions that are coming out that are, realize, okay, these are some general use cases that companies need to leverage in regards to NLP. We already see some of these companies coming up, like Copy AI, Anywhere, that are leveraging sort of the copywriting aspect of NLP, and then they're allowing organizations to use it as a service. Not everything has to be in-house, and I'm sure we can extrapolate on many more. But Noy, you're taking a more consumer approach to NLP. Tell me about what you've been working on the last 6 months.
So I've been working on Creative Keyboard. Creative Keyboard's goal is not to use these models, but it's using these models to help people communicate better, right? Most of our social lives today is on social text apps on our phone, right? Is that how you talk to most of your friends, I guess, most of the time? WhatsApp, Snapchat, Facebook Messenger. That's just how we live right now. And you and I are probably the same age, but people 10 or 20 years younger than us are doing that even more. And I believe that's not really going to change. It's just going to grow. And the thing is, not everybody is as good as in communicating via text as everybody else, right? Some people are very good person to person communicating, like face to face. But when they're giving texting on a chat app, it's not easy for them and they can't express themselves. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. Okay. We want to help people communicate better through text on their phone. And we're doing this by giving them suggestions. Okay. So we're actually a smartphone keyboard that uses AI and very large language models to give you suggestions on what to say. So it can be something to start off a conversation. It can be a reply to something that somebody asked you. It can be a compliment. We have a few different features. And we're just starting out and we're trying to figure out what's the best UI to make this possible, how to make the user actually want to use this. And we're actually all about the users. So I talk to users of the app. It's on the Google Play Store. You can download it and play around. And I talk with the users every day to understand how to make this better. What are the use cases that are actually being used? And that's about it. That's Creative Keyboard. What do you think is the most popular use for Creative Keyboard? Question for you.
For me. Well, and then I have a few questions about Creative Keyboard.
No, it's not the popular use for you. What do you think people use it for? Not what would you use it for?
It's a great question. It's a great question. Most popular use of Creative Keyboard.
So where do people really want to excel at communicating via text? And it's crucial for them. They really want to be good at it.
For me, it would be automatic responding to things that I would respond anyways. For me, it's the very simple yes, no, or responses that I have to be online in real time, constantly on my phone, respond to people. And if I have a way of personalizing that mechanism for me, but I think that speaks also to a larger question I had before of Is this more of a generalized approach or a personalized approach in regards to now the NLP space? How much of the creative keyboard is me versus how much of it is a generalized communication standard that you learn across a variety of people?
You just asked the best question. It's a great question. So thank you for that. The goal is to have it very personalized, right? But when you just start using it, it's not personalized at all.
Right.
You get some kind of a generalized model with a few features. But as soon as you start using it, you start inputting data into the system that makes it very personalized. So the choices that you make, every time you use the keyboard, it gives you 3 suggestions. Okay.
Yeah.
Every time you press on something, it learns how you like to sound like, what's the tone, what's the different things, why you use most. And very quickly, it creates a personalized digital kind of, I would say, companion that knows what are the things that you like saying. Now, this is a trap that you can also fall to, because I don't want to always suggest you the same things, because maybe in some other time you want to talk a bit differently. So I also don't want the model to overfit some sort of you that you won't all the time. So I have to insert some noise and sometimes make it a little different. So the goal is to have it very personalized, but for that you have to use the keyboard and it has to know you.
Interesting. Now, if you're looking at autocomplete and the keyboard suggestions that we've been having, for quite some time. So obviously you're coming and saying, listen, guys, this is not working. We can do much better than that. Where did these auto suggestions fail, I guess, in your eyes, that led you to start this creative keyboard? And I wanted to put the special emphasis on the creative word that you decided to put in the beginning of the product name.
So it definitely sounds like we're doing something that's similar to auto suggestion, but actually, when you use it, you realize it's absolutely different. What suggestions do is complete you, right? You start typing something, and they tell you what's the probable next word. They don't invent anything from nothing, and they're definitely not responsive to the person you're talking with. They don't know what the other person wrote to you, and so how to respond. What we're doing is giving you actual suggestions. Let's say, I got a new dog. I just adopted a new dog. And so you want to ask me questions about the dog, but maybe you're just not sure what's the right thing to say. What do I ask? So you can write dog in the keyboard, press the button, and it will offer you different suggestions, different questions about dogs. So let's say and then you can pick one of them. Let's say you don't like these questions, press again, you'll get different suggestions. Maybe you don't like the phrasing of how it said it. You can press on the paraphrase button and get a different phrasing for the same sentence. But that's something that's the autocomplete, they can't do. They solve a different problem, right? They make your life more efficient. We try to make you communicate better by giving you different sentences different suggestions to say.
Interesting. When I get a new dog, now diving a little bit deeper into the NLP scene, I adopt a new dog, and now a lot of my conversations are going to be centered around that, right? This is a new information that the model wasn't trained on. It doesn't understand this yet. How do you then technologically go and be able to personalize sort of a response to something that you may not know exists yet, right? What is sort of my interaction with the model that you're building that allows it to then extrapolate on how Michael will want to respond in regards to a new event that happens in Michael's life?
You mean people ask you about that new dog that you adopted?
Well, but I mean, perhaps in my daily communication, my communication changes based on my life events. It changes based on my outlook during the day. Some days I'm more optimistic. Some days I'm more pessimistic. Hopefully more optimistic. And some days and some weeks I have something that I'm really excited about. That is sort of the center of my conversation. How does a model or a creative keyboard adapt to my changing neurons that are changing based on experiences that the model isn't aware of necessarily?
So we first need to remember that this is not some sort of bot that talks for you.
Right.
This is a keyboard that gives you suggestions.
Right.
Like when you ask the question, I felt like, oh, maybe this bot is not talking like me. No, that's not the situation.
No,
You're the
want
one
suggestions
that
to be
actually is doing the talking. Definitely. So let's talk about replies, because I think so somebody asks me a question, and maybe on some day I'm feeling very happy and grateful for my life. So I want to give a response that fits that. On some other day, I have a bad mood and I want to say something else, right? I want to reflect that in my answer because I don't want to give some sort of a wrong impression. So Creative Keyboard is built around that. When you press the reply button, you get these emojis that you can pick one of them and get the replies on the mood of what you're feeling. So you can actually try to press the emoji of what fits you best today, and you'll get a reply that fits your mood. Okay. Now we need to remember that this is also personalized. So the keyboard will learn how you respond when you're in sort of mood, because maybe one person wants to share his feelings and talk about it, and some other person acts differently and rather not talk about it and just make the other person just know that he's not really up for a conversation today. So we need to remember that there are different persons and each one can have the mood button a little different.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
so that's what we're doing. We obviously can't respond to your life event without knowing what it is, but the keyboard has enough functionality to make you very easily teach it what's going on with you.
And I think that speaks to the important trend of the integration of NLP with different use cases, which is this idea of what is sort of our input into a response from the model, right? And you're mentioning, yes, Michael, you're not going to be. I'm not trying to replace you with a bot. I'm not recreating Michael. What I am doing though is I'm allowing you to create some idea of how Michael responds and how Michael thinks. And if you're able to guide me with some very, very quick inputs into where you're at right now, then I can guide you towards something that will be closer to what you would have responded. And so I guess the thesis here is that if I give you a few quick inputs that are easy for me, you'll be able to provide me with the more comprehensive response that I would have responded with. And all I need to do is I need to guide you with a few key inputs, right? And that's really the creativeness here.
Yeah. I agreed until you said that's the creativeness here.
Okay.
Because what I felt you were saying is about recreating a digital Michael that can talk the same as Michael and just being about efficiency, right? You pick the thing instead of actually writing it down. But that's not really our goal, because you don't need a digital you, because you have you. You can just type whatever you want.
Sure.
I want to help you be more creative on your text conversations. Okay. And so the keyboard actually suggests things that you might want to say, but you didn't think of at the same moment. Maybe because you're not just that great at communicating via text, because I believe with face to face, we talk different. So I want to suggest things that you want to say that will have a more meaningful conversation, or it doesn't have even to be meaningful. It can be funny. It can be fun. I want you to have a better interaction using the keyboard. So this button we have, it actually suggests cheesy suggestions based on some subjects that you write. Okay.
Got it.
So, and so sometimes I talk with my girlfriend when I'm using the app, and she's like, honey, can you bring some cheese home? And then I put cheese into the suggestions. I get some funny, cheesy sentences that I tell her, you melt me like cheese and these kind of things. Now, she knows I'm not serious and it's the keyboard, but it makes the conversation funny and fun, and just makes the interaction, I think, better for both of us instead of it being just transactional.
I love that. So that's
the creative part.
That's very, very cool. And obviously we're getting into a world of communication, and how do we, obviously we don't communicate as nobody communicates as well as we potentially can. And I love that. I love that idea. I'm going to play it out myself And I can only imagine how in so many different contexts, this creative piece, it helps create more meaningful interactions. It creates more interest. It creates higher engagement with the people that we're communicating with. So creative keyboard and this company in general, what is sort of the vision, or what is a success in your eyes?
A success is when we help millions of people communicate better in their social interactions on mobile, and hopefully long term, I'm not sure, hopefully this will happen, but I believe the world is becoming a lot more online. If it's the metaverse or any kind of digital world that we're going to be interacting with. So hopefully will be major products that helps you communicate better in any one of these digital spaces. It's starting with mobile, ending with this metaverse or whatever it will be called, that I believe will happen in a few years.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Noy, I really want to thank you for taking time to just chat with me. I love the perspective on the integration of these machine learning models into business use cases, the generalist versus fine-tuned approaches, where we're at today with NLP, moving on to sort of the consumer side of it and the different use cases that you're now dipping your toes in and leveraging your experience with. So I'm personally excited to try out Creative Keyboard myself. And thank you very much for the time and for the energy, and best of luck with this company and with everything else that you'll do. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I had a great time.
Thank you.